On this week's episode of Friend Code, we're diving back into Nintendo memories with the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube. So everyone, welcome to Friend Code. I am Michael Damiani, your host and sort of moderator.
And sort of
moderator, just a little bit.
Yep.
And I am joined once again by Mr. Daniel Butterworth.
Hello.
And Mr. Kyle Bosman.
Hi.
And we're going to finish up our Nintendo memories, hopefully, with the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube systems. We're going to start with the GameCube, and then we're going to go into Game Boy Advance, but I feel like this one's going to be... Well, I feel like it's going to be interesting, Bloodworth, because there was so much synergy between those two systems.
Sure.
Because of Nintendo's strategy, and we will definitely get into that. But I always like to start off each episode with a little segment called Dear Nintendo.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you forgot about that one, didn't you? And I was looking through the limited amount of Nintendo Power issues I still had left and trying to find one from the era we're talking about. And it was between this one, which has Soulcalibur cover, and
it's not just that it has Soulcalibur, it has Link.
Yeah, they're selling it.
It's another Link cover from.
I'll explain that.
Honestly, it's a strong depiction of Link too.
It has,
it's great.
My old college dress on here.
Okay, don't put that on cam. Don't put that on cam.
So we're gonna not put that on cam. But I don't know
what's gonna happen.
To explain that, Kyle, the only issues in Nintendo Power I kept are related to Zelda.
Okay.
I chucked them all back in, like I told you when I moved, I chucked them all. I only kept the ones that had Zelda coverage, prominent Zelda coverage, because I knew I'd probably need them
for your
down
shrine.
the line. Not for my shrine, for collection and for informational purposes when I did features.
Gotcha.
So I haven't shown this off to the camera yet.
You knew that years later you would be doing a timeline for a GameTrailers.com.
Kyle knows me way too well.
You knew.
I was going to bring that up.
It was destiny
I was like,
foretold.
no,
But you only have one slice of the Wind Waker.
Oh yeah, we gotta explain that. Well, first, people complained how far back we were holding this, so if you can't see this, I apologize.
Scan it in, Damiani.
Scan it in.
Scan it in.
Look at that, Kyle. Soulcalibur 2, which we will actually talk about at some point, hopefully, features featured Link on the GameCube version. This nice look. Link battles only on GameCube.
GCN.
Cool.
On GCN.
GCN. I'm just so trained to read GCN as GameCube.
It's honestly really weird for Nintendo to do that on the cover of a Nintendo Power.
Because you remember, I don't know if you remember real quick, but back in the day when this was new, remember the abbreviation thing? People were trying to use NGC. Like Nintendo GameCube. Game was like, no.
Yeah.
Nintendo's like, it is GCN. GameCube Nintendo.
Honestly, I think this is a big reason why the next thing's Wii.
Oh.
Because they loved that you wouldn't have to abbreviate it. They loved that.
Sure.
You can't abbreviate Wii.
But let's be clear. GCN itself was a concession. The proper way to write it was Nintendo GameCube in all caps.
Even Nintendo in all caps or GameCube's in all caps?
Nintendo Style
in all
Guide.
caps.
Oh my goodness.
Style Guide. So let's dive in. Not as cool of artwork anymore, and the ads started to get a little annoying in Nintendo Power. Look how plain that is.
That's a cool ad.
Contents.
Conflict Desert Storm.
Nah.
Okay. Ikaruga, dude. Classy ad.
I thought this was actually the second
Oh wait,
page.
yeah, that's the IGN quote.
What's the IGN quote?
Our frothing demand for this game increases.
Now, Blood said the IGN quote as if it's infamous.
IGN.com.
Why?
Because of what it just said.
Our frothing demand for this game
Frothing
increases?
Demand. Look at that. That was the ad. Anyway, Dear Nintendo segment where we read letters to the Nintendo Power staff from years gone by. This one was heavily focused on Pokemon. A lot of Pokemon write-ins in this one, Kyle.
Really?
So I'm kind of curious about this.
I'm sorry. Repeat the month.
This is. Sorry.
It looks like December 2001.
See if Blood's right.
Or is that? Oh, that's on the ad.
It should say. Actually, doesn't it say on the side?
Absolutely. It just says right on the cover. Like up in the upper right.
No.
Really? That's so bizarre.
Here we go.
Okay.
June 2003.
Okay.
June 2003. I guess it's just still residual Pokemon questions. I guess they're just still hanging around.
Actually, this might be the fan art. Hang on, let me just make sure. Yeah, wait. That's
What?
the Players Pulse Artist Gallery.
But that's still part of Player's Pulse there.
I'm missing a page.
Okay.
Here we go. Thank
All
you.
right.
I was like, there was something here. So here we go. There's a letter of the month, and then there's a special feature right here. So the feature, Kyle, is called Princess Peekabelichu. And there's this image right here, Kyle, of a cosplayer trying to look like Peekabelichu.
Okay. Probably before we even called it cosplay in the U.S.
Princess Peekabelichu sent us an amazing 48-page photo album of her Pokemon Nintendo-inspired costumes. The talented costumer resides in Florida. So now I'm calling her a cosplayer. I said costumer.
Yeah.
Resides in Florida, where she brings her original ideas to life. Princess Peekabelichu also sent beautiful sketches of every costume. Thanks.
Ah.
Be sure to check out her elegant Queen Peekabelichu costume. Impressive.
Here's the thing, yeah, because it wasn't fair for me to laugh. I just laughed because of 48 pages. They can't possibly print all of that, Princess Peekabelichu.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, in a good way. Like, that's dedication.
Yeah, because actually the costume is good and the art is good, too.
That is...
Yeah, I mean, the art is good enough that I thought, like, she had based it off of that when it's really... I mean, she probably did, but she drew that herself. That's cool.
That's pretty cool. So, letter of the month. I'll hold this up in a second.
Okay.
Letter of the month.
All
right. So, this was the premise, Kyle.
Okay.
The world's love for Pokemon is going strong.
Mm-hmm.
As you'll notice, Pokemon practically took over this month's Player's Pulse. That's not all you'll find, though. We've also sprinkled in a dash of gameplay help, a pinch of techie talk, and a hint of upcoming in-game news. It's a jam-packed Player's Pulse. So here we go, letter of the month.
Okay.
My ultimate Pokemon would be Mew. Or in other words, Baby Mew. The pre-evolution of my favorite Pokemon, Mew. I mean,
Hold on. This is letter of the month. This is the best letter they
This is
received
the
on
one
this
they're
month.
featuring.
Okay,
I don't know
all
if
right.
it's best. It's the one they want to feature.
Okay.
I mean, come on. Mew is so cute and powerful. Imagine a baby version, a baby legendary at that. Here is what Mew would be like.
Okay.
So name Mew. Evolution Mew.
Spell Mew?
Mimeu.
Okay.
So Mew. Evolution into Mew. Pre-evolution, none. Species, new species. Appearance.
That checks out.
Looks pretty much like Mew. Okay. Except smaller. Jesus God. Mew has a longer tail, smaller ears, and is pastel blue in color.
Ooh, okay.
not pink.
That's significant. Yeah.
The shiny version of Mew is white.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Description. Mew can learn all TMs. But
Just like Mew.
But only a few HMs.
Okay.
It learns Confusion, Light Screen, Metronome, and Pound. All of its stats are high, but Special Attack and Speed are the highest. In order to evolve into Mew must at least be level 25, have 200 happiness, 20 cute, 10 cool, 20 smart, and 10 beauty. Pokédex description. Mew is the newly discovered pre-evolution of the legendary Pokemon Mew. Legend has it that Mew was lost in time and sent back to its ancient state.
Ooh.
Mew is very sensitive to children's emotions and will only appear to a trainer with a pure heart.
Cool.
Via Windia Angel on the internet. And here's her reply, Nintendo.
Okay.
What a great idea for a Pokemon. You obviously spent a lot of time creating every detail for Mew. Some of the best Pokemon come from your imagination. Check out your fellow readers' ultimate Pokemon ideas on pages 11 and 12, which is what these are. So these are all pretty much everyone's like ultimate Pokemon.
Oh, so they must have prompted the issue prior.
Yeah,
I want to believe
probably
that.
was.
Because it seems so funny, unprovoked. Like, let me tell you about Mew. Eventually, there was a legendary baby. It happened. It wasn't a legendary form of Mew, but yeah.
So maybe it wasn't-
Manaphy had Phione. Or Phione, I guess we would say. Anyway, that one's very garbage. That's a garbage little baby Pokemon.
Garbage.
It doesn't even evolve. No, Phione. Phione's bad. Mew, I would hear you out. I think it needs like a special ability or anything. It's weird that its moves are so bland. It needs something. It needs a hook. Some sort of ancient hook.
Ancient hook.
So okay, if it traveled back in time, it needs some really cool time travel move. Kind of like Foresight, but like it can go backwards. So yes, Blood. The special ability is if you knock out Mew, it reverses the battle 3 turns.
Wow, Kyle.
The first time you knock out Mew, it reverses the battle 3 turns, and you get a second chance to allow Mew to survive.
Crazy.
I feel like we need to see Mew in a future remake of Pokemon.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll work on it.
But yeah, you're right. They did have readers write in with their ultimate Pokemon. One wanted to make a razor sharp Pokemon that chased its sister, which was kind of funny.
Not funny.
Not funny. Kind of funny. Almost got him. There's a lot of ones that wanted to call them my Pokemon is called Dragoon. It's dark and dragon type. Dragoon's big teeth, claws, and horns are great for using against enemies. The spike ball on its tail is pretty heavy, so it's also good in battles. The only problem is that it's so heavy, the Dragoon sometimes has trouble holding it up.
It's the time before fairy types. Dragons are ruling the roost. Dragons are on top of the world right now.
Gotcha.
I see a bunch of dragons. I look at that page. I think I see 3
full of
Yeah,
dragons.
it's like, my ultimate Pokemon would be a 35-foot dragon
Yep.
with 4 pairs of wings. My all-time is a Fire Pegasus. There you go.
Ooh, a Fire Pegasus.
A racing one.
What is that black and white one on the side? It looks like an Eevee dragon kind of thing.
This one?
Yeah.
My Pokemon is a grass type called Leafy.
Oh, okay.
Its coloration is green for the leaves, light green for the body, black for the triangles, and dark green for its round claws. Small spikes in its tail, including the tip, and those smooth spots on its horn on top of its head. I hope you like the little guy as much as I do. So yeah,
These are sweet. Yeah, those are
lot
sweet.
of dragons.
Yeah.
A lot of dragons here. So and I love how people sent their mail in with like fan drawn stuff on the envelopes.
Oh yeah.
Like they would send them in, and Nintendo Power just like feature those like on the top here. Like,
And you know that's a
those are-
small fraction of what was sent in.
Oh,
Oh yeah, that's like insane. So I'll hold this up before we move on so you can see.
If you're on mobile, just pause and pinch.
Pika Belchew.
Expand.
Unfortunately, the Mew had no artwork with it.
Right.
It was all to
So
our imagination.
It's just all to your imagination.
It's basically, it looks like Mew, but smaller. The ears are smaller. That's strange to me. I think in the baby form, you want to increase the size of the ears.
increase the size of the ears.
Yep. Like a puppy.
All right. So.
Time to get down to business.
I hit that.
Yeah.
I apologize. I hit that a few times there. Not very professional. It's time to move on and talk about the GameCube. GameCube. The last 2 episodes we talked about how we first owned or first had a GameCube. I want to start slightly different this time because I think the 3 of us are familiar with what I'm about to talk about. I want to talk about before the GameCube came out. I want to talk about that Space World 2000 video. The one that everyone saw, the CG with the Meowth, with the Link and Ganon, the Metroid. I want to know what your initial, if you can remember back then.
What was also the crazy forest thing?
There was
What's that called?
there was Wave Race.
It was just a tech demo, but it was this crazy
There was this-
tree people and stuff.
There was
Tree
this
people.
Super Mario,
Oh, yeah, it was
one
cool.
everyone dubbed Mario 128, which wasn't Mario 128.
Hold on, what is Blood talking about
Yeah,
with
I'm
the
trying to
tree
remember.
I can't remember the name of it.
people? And this is from Space World, from the reveal of the GameCube.
Crazy tree
Yeah, yeah,
people.
It was like super detailed textures, like on the bark and stuff, but I can't remember what the name of it was.
It's so weird, Blood. I have no memory
We
of
were
that.
watching the videos before, and we didn't come across that one.
Because
Maybe it was Space World 2001 then, but I don't know. No, I think it was earlier.
This one, like, cause the one I'm talking about, I mean, I think a lot of people know about the Link versus Ganondorf scene because that caused some controversy. I don't know, but it also had like the Pokemon dancing at the party, celebrating with
Meowth is playing guitar. Mew's there.
Samus runs through like the corridor with those little like creatures chasing on the ground.
And by the way, this all looks better than anything you've ever seen.
Wave Race,
Yes.
like doing the like little barrel roll flip or whatever.
At the time, this all looks... Honestly, it's a better Mew character model than we have
Luigi's
today. Sorry,
Mansion.
Meowth.
Yep.
Luigi's Mansion was shown off in it.
Yeah.
I was blown away by this.
Yeah.
when I
Oh, for
first
sure.
saw that. I was just like, I'm all. Oh, I had Rogue Leader in it as well. Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
They
which
showed off-
the
they
only
showed
one that's actually how it looks in
and
the
they
end game.
showed the
Yeah.
famous scene. It's like, hey, we're all going to the Death Star. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm all in on this.
Rebirth.
Rebirth.
That's what it was.
What is
Holy
Rebirth,
crap.
dude? What is it?
Um,
It's just a tech demo. It's not an actual
yeah,
game.
it is just a tech demo. I
Called
mean,
Rebirth.
I can't show it to them on the
I
camera.
can grab
but-
it.
Damiani will splice
I'll
it in
play
right
for
now.
them on so. When you were describing it, I'll throw it up on there. But yeah, that's. I'm sure I'll remember this when I say it.
So, Blood, this is from the GameCube reveal same year?
Yeah, this is 2000.
Okay, so we see, what is it, an ant carrying a...
No, it's like a little tree person.
Oh,
Climbing
whoa.
another tree person, and there's some mushrooms, and there's a hornet or something there.
And this is from Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly artistic. Whoa. A little bit of Pikmin vibes, I guess.
And E.T. meets, Pikmin.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the texture work ended up going into Pikmin, because it does kind of have a similar feel on that end.
Blood, I can't believe this right now.
Little flying squirrel.
I'm so sorry to listeners, because
Yeah.
what we're seeing right now is a piece of history I've never seen before.
Literally during this part right now, you
Yeah.
should be seeing it on screen. Like, I'm covering up this part right now with this footage.
Little bird.
Cool. All right, so
yeah.
Damiani, I remember magazines. I remember seeing this in magazines first.
So you saw still images first.
Yes.
I probably saw it on IGN.com.
Cool.
That's probably where I saw the video of this first.
We had to download it, right? You couldn't stream it.
Yeah,
you had to,
there would be
click
like the
download.
links to like the QuickTime files. You
Yeah.
had to
Sure.
go get the AVIs and I was just all in on this. Like
Yeah.
I just remember.
Well, and one of the things that they did, which was kind of mind blowing, because like this is revealing like Nintendo's first time using discs, and they opened it up and they popped Luigi's Mansion in, and it just loaded like it was a cartridge. It was just like, what is this magic? Which the games just load. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy to see that technology in action.
Yeah, first Nintendo console to go strictly disc based. So that was one of the kind of like the knacks, or people were kind of complaining against N64 for using cartridges. Like, the only reason you didn't win last time is because you used cartridges. So it's like, all right, well,
Yeah, that was a
here
real
we-
knack against it.
I know, I didn't mean to say knack, but I was like, Kyle, I'm setting you up here. What do you got? What do you got for me, Kyle?
Sorry to disappoint
Now
you.
that was like literally, I was like, where's the joke, Kyle?
Sorry.
But it wasn't a traditional.
It's still proprietary,
It was
though.
still proprietary. As I
still looks
pulled
less
it
than.
out
Yeah.
for you. Like, you open the system.
Yeah.
Like, I like this thing about how you push down on the middle, just pops it
Yeah.
up.
It
like
feels
that.
good. I love
So
it.
Well,
good.
plus
Yeah.
if you open it while it's still turned on, it will stop the disc.
Yep.
So
So it's this tiny little mini disc, their proprietary disc. It also spins the other way, I believe. Which
well,
is,
it's been the thing. Yeah, the two things that make it load so fast are the size, and then it's a constant velocity. So basically, like, like when you hear like disc-based systems kind of like have those like high-pitched kind of motor sounds. It's because what it's doing is it's moving the laser back and forth on a track,
okay.
and it's changing the speed of the disc. And that takes time to get everything to match up. Whereas what the GameCube does is the disc moves at the same speed constantly, and rather than the laser moving, it tilts, and the angle makes it
Whoa.
work. It's a math thing. So the laser's not moving all over the place; it's just tilting.
Blood, that's fascinating, dude. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Nintendo engineering. They
Yeah.
do.
It's
some
also
crazy
why
stuff.
if somebody's not good at modding it, certain games don't work entirely perfectly once you've put this thing back together, because it has to be all like in sync.
Cool.
Gotcha.
Way cool.
Very good stuff. GameCube came out 2001 after this hype for it. I think from my perspective at least, I saw GameCube as, all right, Nintendo had a misstep with the N64. Still great games. I loved it, but I'm tired of hearing everyone saying they lost to Sony. What are they going to do to get back? And then I saw this system. I saw those CG visuals. I was like, yes, we got the CG movies. The games are going to look as good. It's got, even though it's this mini version, it's still like a DVD technically, so they can't complain this time. And everyone was talking about, like, it's going to be as powerful or on par with the other systems. And I was like, all right, here we go. Like, Nintendo's going to shine. And GameCube comes out. and in November of 2001 here, came out a little bit earlier in Japan, I believe September of 2001. It was a big launch. The one thing I noticed about it that was different for me from even N64, it was the first Nintendo console where it didn't launch with a game called Super Mario something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start there. It launched with the I would say the three biggest titles that probably had at launch that were exclusive to it were Luigi's Mansion, Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron 2, and Wave Race Blue Storm. None of those. I mean, Rogue Leader was amazing.
Yeah,
but
it is amazing.
It is amazing.
I mean, especially like when you look again. We're talking about being on disc. Like you look at all the stuff they packed into that disc with like the DVD style commentaries and all of that, and then the weird stuff they did with time of day, where Tatooine would like match up whatever time of day it was, and the lighting would change. Yeah. And I think there's only certain missions like would change as well with that.
It is a really good game.
Yeah.
Despite that, I just remember so many people focusing on where's Super Mario whatever? Like where's the new Mario game?
Oh yeah, and comparing Luigi's Mansion.
And then they're like, hey, what's
it.
this Luigi's Mansion?
Yeah.
And Luigi's Mansion is a good game.
Yes.
It got an unfair rap because it didn't have the word Super Mario in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was also a game that you could feasibly, kind of feel like you were done with after a weekend. So
yes.
that was a big knock, even against, some of my friends who were like, yeah, this isn't a launch game, this is a rental, and I'm just kind of like really perjured.
Yeah. And it wasn't even a platformer. It was this more adventure exploration game with the ghost-sucking mechanic. It was very slow-paced. It was pretty much the antithesis of a Super Mario game. Nintendo dared to go with that first. And I just remember so many people focusing on that. And the questions is like, how did Nintendo, until the eventual release of Sunshine, was like, where's the Mario game? Where's the Mario game? I was like, is it really that ingrained in gaming culture that you have to have Mario with Nintendo at launch? Like, I think it's residually, it still happens now. Like, it's not as bad. Like, when Switch came out, like, oh, there's no Mario. Whoop, it's doomed or something. But I think with, like, Wii U, and Switch, there's still some thought of, like, no Mario game. It's more acceptable, but you still wonder, like, when's that Mario game coming out? Like, Odyssey's coming out this year, and it was rumored to be a launch title for a while, so it's still kind of there. And, like, this is the first system to buck the trend, and I don't think that was ultimately what, like, cost it, finishing, better off than it ended up doing, but it was the first big thing that Nintendo did that was like, was that the best choice for this system out the gate?
So I have a weird take on this because this was my first Nintendo console since the NES.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And at this point, I'm deep into my video game fandom.
Okay.
And I want to own more consoles, and it was really hard for me to choose between the Xbox and the GameCube. Same year.
Why was it so hard? I'm curious.
Xbox is serious. It's got Halo.
I mean, was it only Halo? Was there any other games? I'm always curious about why people got excited about Xbox, other than it was a Microsoft console and there was PC gamers like getting excited about a console, and Halo. Was there anything else besides those 2 points that got you like enticed?
I remember the EGM reveal of the Xbox describing the team that was working on it and how hard they were working on it and their passion and their goals. And I remember seeing, gosh, what's the name of the game with the little girl with the sledgehammer? Whatever that was. There's a screenshot of that, and I'm looking at that. Yeah, well done, Blood.
Whoa.
Yes.
That's it.
Malice looked like a better game that I'd ever seen in my life. I was torn. I was on the Xbox side up until I was at Target. Saw a video of Rogue Squadron.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, GameCube it is. It was that simple. It was honestly that simple. That game still looks great.
Yeah, Rogue Squadron is definitely one of the best looking games on the system. And it kind of shows like how easy it is to make like, Star Wars look good.
Yeah.
Because like even when you go back to N64 and Shadows of the Empire, like that stuff is like, oh, this stuff looks really good. And there's just something about that aesthetic that really works to having limited technology.
And Damiani, I hear you knocking the launch, but I think it's worth talking about how quickly Melee came.
Yeah, I was. I just want like
weeks later.
I sorry, the peek behind the curtain here. I was just trying to get like a starting point for how we got into GameCube.
Sure.
Other than what did you start with?
So I remember I wanted it so bad. I was telling my dad the day it launched. I said, "All right, we gotta go to Toys R Us early. There's gonna be a line. We gotta get there early." And there were 3 people in line, and we got them. So it was just like, "What are you here for?" And we're like, "The GameCube comes out today," and they're like, "All right." Okay. And then they just sold us the GameCube. It's like, okay, it was so easy to get. It was not a problem.
Yeah, so I was super invested way before even the Space World thing.
When it was called Dolphin?
Yeah, well, before even that, it was like Project N2000 is what we were calling it.
Ooh, cool.
But yeah, so then I forget who broke the Dolphin name. And then, eventually the GameCube, and then we broke the GameCube logo. Well, it wasn't even really us then, but it was just the site I was following, broke the GameCube logo. But yeah, when it actually came to launch, it was kind of funny because I was able to get some games early. This was the first launch that I had participated in, where it was like, you couldn't get Nintendo's games, but you could get Star Wars, you could get some other games. Like, stores would sell those games to you as soon as there were stores. So I got Star Wars early, and I was checking out the box and look at the disc and all that. And so I was calling around to see if anyone was selling the GameCube itself early. And there was a store that said, "Well, we've got the Japanese GameCubes, and they're modified so you can play US discs." And I'm like, "I'll be right there."
Whoa.
And so I got I went ahead and.
What kind of store is it? Only video games?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so I got my GameCube early, and that's like right there, and that's basically what put me on the path to like importing and all of that, because
it also played Japanese games?
Yeah.
Whoa, is it like a Switch on the outside?
There's a Switch on the back, because here again, simple, weird technical things. The only difference between a Japanese and American GameCube is a simple on-off switch on the circuit board. So all you have to do is close that circuit, and it becomes English.
No way.
So you just power it off, flip the switch, power it back on, and like Japanese menus or English menus.
Cool.
Either way.
Yeah, I thought there was also like a header file on the disc. And I think this persisted through like the Wii versions as well. That you get like eventually when people started playing games like through hard drives and stuff, when they modded, you would just strip out that thing and it would just read the game like on your system and detect the language of your system, like, oh, it's those files are already on there, like you could play it in this language and stuff. So for some games, but otherwise it would just like let you play it like, there's no region for this, it's cool, you can play this on it.
That's cool.
But real quick, I was getting to it later, but I was bringing up now, but like playing Japanese games on this system, GameCube was the first system for me that I actually
started
actively imported any games,
Japanese games,
and played them through their entirety. It was only 2, and you probably can guess which 2 they are.
I can't. Wind Waker is one of my guesses.
That's one of them.
Mario Sunshine, yeah.
No. Another Zelda game.
Oh, Twilight Princess?
No, that came out in English.
The Master
first.
Quest?
Nope.
Four Swords Adventures.
There you go.
Okay.
Four Swords Adventures. Japanese. Okay. And I used the action replay little disc.
Oh, you
so I did
cool.
the disc, and so you put the disc in the screen and say, "Please put in the game disc now," and then loaded it. It was pretty easy.
Blood, what color was your Japanese GameCube?
It was just a standard purple.
Okay.
Yeah, but then when I got the Game Boy player, it ended up being like a total mismatch. It was like a silver.
Oh, I had one of those. Yeah, I still have that attached here.
Because again, I just like ordered whatever they had.
So. Oh, Jones's GameCube was over there. I was going to show you real quick, but like the GameCube wasn't really a cube at all when it first came out. This was, like it's not a real cube.
It's close enough.
No, sure. It was like, no, it wasn't. It was kind of. But once you had the Game
Boy,
Boy,
an inch and a half
once
off.
you had the Game Boy player, though, it was
That's
like,
a
did they
cube.
plan this
Yeah.
to make it an actual cube once they added that?
They planned something because there's a lot of docks on the bottom. There's a lot of
well, one of the other docks is the broadband thing. Which is funny because you could there was a modem or a broadband adapter, and then Phantasy Star Online was the only game to really officially use online.
Oh, officially, yeah.
And then there was Mario Kart,
Double Dash,
and Kirby's Air Ride, right?
Maybe.
Those were like the only like
that supported
games.
LAN.
Yeah.
Yeah. remember the Double Dash stuff. That was like, I think IGN tried to do it and like filmed it or something. It was the only time I ever got to see it in action. Like I never saw anyone else try and do it in person. It was kind of weird. But anyway, going back real quick, Kyle made a point earlier. Despite us like, by the way, I got my GameCube I think for like Christmas or something. It wasn't as eventful.
Oh, so Smash Bros is out at that point.
So yes,
okay,
which is a good transition because when I got my GameCube, I got Rogue Leader. Because like, oh yes, this game looks amazing, and I loved the N64 ones. I did not want Luigi's Mansion. Did not care about it. I was like, I'm not interested in this game. This isn't Super Mario. I was one of those people. I
was the same way. Like I didn't actually play Luigi's Mansion for a while.
Yeah, I don't remember how I got it because I didn't ask for it. I didn't buy it myself. I got Wave Race Blue Storm somehow. I had fun with it, but I didn't like it as much as the original by any stretch. But Super Smash Brothers Melee was out by the time I got my GameCube.
Yeah. And
that game defines the GameCube.
Oh, for sure.
That is there are a lot of great games on GameCube, but I feel like if you were forced to pick the one game, the biggest standout game of the GameCube, because it's still brought up today, even in the fighting game community, how they carried the torch for this game. Still wanted it to be featured over the newer iterations. There's such an like how many times every direct goes by, people are like, "Where's Melee HD?" Like Melee is huge, and Smash Bros. 64 was a big deal. We talked about it last episode, but Melee was like a whole other beast. And I just want to say that adventure mode in that game was one of the things that did it for me. It wasn't just how it looked good. It wasn't just the cutscenes, the CG sequence, that intro for Melee. So memorable.
Super good.
Oh, Damiani, I think probably my favorite part is the transition from Metroid to Kirby, where like the planet blows up and then there's the star and then suddenly you're in Kirby's world. I love that.
Like, adventure mode just had so much charm to it.
Yeah.
Well, and the museum aspect and all the collecting and everything, and like just showing off all of this Nintendo history that you had no idea existed.
Yeah,
even the inclusion of the Fire Emblem characters at the time is like,
everyone's like, wait, who's Roy and Marth? Where'd they come from? Oh,
they're cool.
You'll see some of them maybe in the GBA games that'll come out later, but never heard of them. But yeah, the trophies just had so much information from games that you never saw outside of Japan, or at least in North America. It was just like, wait, where did these things come from? I was like, whoa. It was just like a big history celebration of a Nintendo game. And
everything looks so good. The best of most of those characters I've ever looked at up until that point is inside of that
game.
Just
their models, like seeing Mario, I was like, yo, it looks this good in this game. I cannot wait till that Mario 3D platformer.
Look at this denim. He's got denim.
Look at those. Oh, Link. Oh, man, that Space World demo doesn't even come close to this looking Link right here.
Yeah.
It's true. That's a better Link than the Space World demo.
Yeah, when you look at the Space World demo now, it's like, oh, this is gross.
It's pretty rough. Looks like fan 3D renderings at this point. But, I mean, we don't have to get into too depth about Melee. It came out early enough that it was like a big thing. And despite any launch hiccup people might have had, hang-ups they might have had over there was no Super Mario game, Smash Brothers came in and was like, forget about it. What's
funny about that, Damiani, to me, is that sometimes I think throughout Nintendo's history, they were lucky that just some select geniuses worked for them. That game could not have happened without Sakurai. You know what I mean? Like, it just could not have come together the way it did. It would not be played today without that single person. I feel the same way about Iwata a lot of times, too. It's just like sometimes you're like, hey, you're lucky you had that person. Otherwise, that would have not launched, you know?
Yeah.
And I do. I think they kind of like lucked into Melee. They said, okay, we need that by launch. It's like, oh my God, there's no way. There's no way you're getting that game by launch. And they're so lucky to get it as close to launch as they actually did.
Hey, sometimes pressure, you know what they say. Pressure and deadlines.
I don't think a lot of game developers would agree with like.
They don't. It's not. I think it's completely luck sometimes. Like they are doing their best, but things just went right for once under those those circumstances. But I don't want to get into too much depth about the first party stuff like we've done with each episode of this. We haven't gone really that deep dive in any of them. Just like make mentions like those. I think those people who were disappointed by the launch with the No Mario. Welcome to fall 2002. You got Metroid Prime, you got Super Mario Sunshine, and you got Star Fox Adventures. You got all these games like in the span of like a few months. Like, oh, I'm sorry we didn't hit launch, but here you go. Here are these updates to these games we've been waiting for. Metroid Prime in particular. Like, I do want to spend a little time on Metroid Prime because Metroid Prime was a big deal because how long, Blood, had it been since fans had a brand new Metroid game?
it was like 8 years gap.
It was ridiculous. And all the rumors about, this N64 Metroid in development, it never materialized. And then when we first heard about it, it's like, wait, first person? Are you insane? Retro Studios?
They're in Texas.
What is not?
Why would they hire these guys from Texas?
Why isn't Nintendo directly handling, like, all that stuff came out of the woodwork? Like, people like to harp on the Wind Waker's visual shift, but like Metroid, it just didn't have it didn't have as big of a fan base, I'd say, as Zelda at the time, but like it was, the amount of concern was there just as much there. And holy crap, that game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that E3,
so good.
Which I think, that was my first E3.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, that was nuts to be there in Metroid Prime, Wind Waker, Mario Sunshine, Eternal Darkness, and then, like, all this other crazy experimental stuff. But like that to be like a Nintendo E3, was crazy to see all that at the same time, and like all of those demos were fantastic. You know, like Metroid Prime was just the opening space station.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what Wind Waker had, or Mario, but I distinctly remember that Metroid Prime demo. I was like, man.
I'm gonna guess Wind Waker was a forest area of some kind, maybe a version of the area you say
that's
Petro, he just fights.
Yeah, at the top of Outset Island. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yes, something like that.
Burp, burp.
I bring up Metroid Prime also not because of like just the retro delivering something amazing and just proving that it basically retro kind of came in and I feel like kind of took the place eventually of Rare, which was kind of would get shifted out during this. So I mentioned Star Fox Adventures, which was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, their only GameCube title that Rare did.
Yeah, I think so.
Before they were eventually...
There were many more in production, in development. Yeah.
Because we
saw... was one of them,
and we saw the Joanna Dark model in the video we watched of the Space World video we were referencing earlier.
And I'm thinking of a Donkey Kong racing game as well, I think.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
But, Rare, which had been such a workhorse during the N64, delivered such great games, including shooters. That seems to be historically Nintendo's weakness when it comes to their first party offerings. They just, for whatever reason, we're not going to get into this episode. We will do a special episode at some point focusing on the Rare. Yeah, what happened with Rare. And we'll get some people in here who are pretty much like experts in that, hopefully, to help talk with us about that. But Microsoft ended up acquiring Rare. And Nintendo had a chance apparently and said, "Sorry, we're not going to take it. We're gonna let you go." And I was like just terrified when I heard it. I was like, "What? Are you crazy? Why are you letting Rare go? Like, where's the new GoldenEye Perfect Dark game going to come? Like, oh, here's Geist. Okay, interesting attempt to make a shooting game.
We have Geist. No, thank you, Rare."
I was like, thank you so much for Retro coming in and giving us Metroid Prime, because if that didn't happen, it would be like, other than the third-party ports that they got, like, what would have Nintendo had to satisfy that crowd?
Metroid Prime's an anomaly for sure.
Yeah,
it was critically acclaimed. I think is also super important
because Microsoft, you were pointing out, had Halo and eventually Halo 2. So
I'm trying to remember for sure. I know Red Faction came to GameCube eventually. But
did it really?
Very limited copies.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is something we can get into with third-party stuff. But Time Splitters was also on
Yes, Time Splitters definitely was.
Yeah, so that was
X-Rare. Multi-platform though.
Yeah.
So, and that was some X-Rare people as well.
But that was, I mean, we can get into some of the third-party stuff, but that was one of the weird situations with third parties.
Yeah.
Is that a lot of games would be published on GameCube, but they would come months later after the marketing spend.
Yep.
And they wouldn't have any kind of shelf space. Like, if you didn't pre-order the game, you didn't get the game. Like, Burnout 2, I was actually super mad because it's like, Burnout 2, this is an awesome game. You can get it on GameCube, and nobody knows. Because, I walked in and, I to the GameStop at the time, and, I got my copy, and I, realized they didn't have any more copies to put on the shelf. That was it. That was the copy was the one I pre-ordered.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is buying on PS2.
Yeah, PS2 had come out, and then Xbox and GameCube came out on the same day, but it was like they were only advertising the Xbox version.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Burnout because I had a short list of like third-party games that would come to GameCube.
Yeah, so
but there'd be like
this stack and this stack are third parties. If we want to go through just some that I have, I also had Splinter Cell for a while, but after I found out how badly they were ported, I traded them in for Xbox
Splinter
versions.
Cell was on there.
Let's see. So I've got A Hobbit, which is
Skip.
Whatever. Star Wars Rebel Strike, True Crime Streets of LA, Mega Man Network Transmission,
Skip.
X-Men Legends 2,
Oh, that's such a good game.
Bomberman Generation,
Cool.
Beyond Good and Evil, Prince of Persia, which I like. Ubisoft didn't have much confidence. They like gave you one for free a couple months later.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I bought
one. I think I bought Prince of Persia and I got Beyond Good and Evil for free or for cheap or something.
That's so weird.
Capcom versus SNK 2, which remember we were talking about how like fighting games and like 2D games weren't there on the N64, so so that came back. DDR Mario Mix, which is hilarious.
Oh gosh, yeah.
There's Burnout, Tales of Symphonia, which again JRPGs were gone on the N64 basically.
True.
Baten Kaitos, another really great Namco
Exclusive.
RPG. Yeah, those are both exclusive. NBA Street V3, which had Mario and Luigi.
Too weird though.
That was it was fun, but it was funny when I went to EA and I interviewed the guys working on that, and they were talking about how strange it was to try to work with Nintendo on it because they have all these real life NBA players with their stats and their height and weight and everything, and they're like, okay, so how tall should Mario and Luigi be? And they wouldn't give them like an actual real world height. They're like, well, this many heads high or whatever.
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
So
I do remember.
Precursor to New Donk City.
Yeah, there's a couple more X-Men games. Dark Sky, which is just an awful thing.
SKYE.
Yeah, that's the Skittles
Is
game.
that the Skittles game?
That's
Yeah.
the Skittles game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So cool.
Medal of Honor Frontline, which fantastic game, probably one of the best World War II shooters. But again, that came like a year later after the PS2 had gotten all the acclaim.
Well, plus you got the little yellow nub for your analog stick.
That didn't bother me really, honestly.
It totally bugged me. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's for first-person games. King Kong.
King Kong.
We're toward the end of GameCube.
Yeah,
there.
that's a later
that
one. That's
was
one
early.
that also came out on 360, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a One Piece game, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, Mega Man Anniversary, Sonic Anniversary, Harvest Moon. That's actually I think they're re-releasing that soon.
Cool.
Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life, Monkey Ball 2. Yeah, Sega.
Yeah, baby.
Sega on the GameCube. That was
We'll get
a new
there.
thing,
Yeah.
Soulcalibur 2 with Link, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Resident Evil 4, which was huge.
Yes.
GameCube exclusive Resident Evil. There's Rogue Leader, Burnout 2, Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1, which was only on some platforms and not others, but actually it's a pretty good game. There's a Sims port.
Skip.
Pac-Man Versus.
Oh, you own it.
That's
Oh,
so
God.
good.
Here,
Pac-Man
we're
World
getting
2,
Pac-Man
Sonic
next,
Adventure
don't
2.
So, a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Oh, Beautiful Joe over here on my Japanese side.
I do want to. I want to do the Capcom stuff real quick.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
the Capcom 5.
The Capcom 5. So remember we were talking about there was a perception in N64 there wasn't a lot of third party support, but as we went through our discussion, we're like, there actually was quite a bit of third party support. It was just certain franchises weren't on N64 where they were on PlayStation. But come GameCube, Nintendo was like, we got to do something about this. We got to bring the big third party titles back. We got to do something about it. And one of those efforts was announced, I believe, in 2001 or 2002, like 2002, right after GameCube came out, was, as Blood mentioned, the Capcom 5, which were a set of 5 games which are supposed to be exclusive to the GameCube, including Resident Evil 4, which was a huge one.
Huge.
Piano 3, Project Number 03, Killer 7, Beautiful Joe, and then one that never came out called Dead Phoenix,
Yep.
which was ultimately canceled.
So PN03 actually is in relation to it's the one of the 5.
Yeah.
So that was like its
The-
probably working title, and then they just kept it.
Maybe I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
So PN stands for project number, though.
I've always said that. I don't know if that's official.
I think
Okay,
it
that's
is.
interesting.
I mean, it's
But I mean,
a
yeah, it was
stylized
just called
PN03.
PN03.
Yeah.
You know
it's
what
all
I-
about, like cybernetics and stuff like that. So
Here's what I remember about PN03. I remember in the magazine, it's like, looks like Capcom's making a better Metroid game than Nintendo is. I remember that snarky comment about
That's
PN03.
Which
I never actually
magazine
played
did
it.
that?
But it's before Prime came out. Is when that was
it
written,
didn't have
I
a
think.
good reception. Like a lot of the magazines ended up not liking it.
Yeah.
It didn't sell very well.
Yeah.
But it did remain GameCube exclusive.
For a lifetime.
Which Resident Evil 4, it was timed exclusive and it did enough.
Can you imagine the money they had to spend to make Resident Evil 4 an exclusive?
That was so huge.
That is too huge.
That was huge. Like Killer 7 was I thought it was a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of gone to cult classic status, kind of along with Beautiful Joe. Like except for Resident Evil 4, none of these games like sold extremely well. Some of them were critically acclaimed, but none of them sold the numbers I think Nintendo was looking for, except for RE4. And RE4 came out in 2005, so it came out towards the end of the GameCube's life cycle. It was January 2005.
Oh, January. Okay.
Yeah, here.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. Okay, cool.
And then it did come out eventually to PlayStation 2, and then
Yeah,
obviously
but that was
ported.
that was kind of the bitter Nintendo fan thing because they announced the PS2 version before the GameCube version came out.
No.
So system seller just became not a system seller because I'll just wait for the PS2 version.
And
What a dirty
there was that
move.
famous, I don't know if it's true or not, the thing about Kamiya's quote that he'd like commit, or something like commit suicide or something if like it came out on they broke their promise or something, and it was announced before. So
Yeah.
And how many systems has Resident Evil 4 been on?
yeah, and it's been out a million times. But you brought up some other games there, like going with the third party sort. Super Monkey Ball, Sega game, exclusive to GameCube.
Very different idea.
Pretty interesting idea that started on its life on the GameCube.
So I think that's worth talking about
Yeah.
because within the GameCube's life cycle, the Dreamcast died, and I think Sega really went to
Yes.
Nintendo, which is weird. It seemed
That
like
was-
that because they were enemies, but for some reason that was a natural home for Sega.
I think, like it was a little surprising, but so for everyone to know, like Sega decided to call it quits in terms of the console manufacturing after shortly after Dreamcast's launch, and they were like, we're just going third party, and then the rumor started flying, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, Sonic Adventure 2 is coming to GameCube.
Yeah.
Then Sonic Mega Collection's coming to GameCube with all the classic most of the classic Sonic games.
Well, Super Monkey Ball was a launch game.
Super Monkey Ball was earlier on.
Skies of Arcadia.
Skies of
was ported.
Arcadia, Phantasy Star Online.
Fantasy Star Online.
Billy Hatcher.
Billy Hatcher, yep.
Yes. All those games came out, and Sonic arrived on GameCube. And I mean, Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, it came out like a year after that.
And then the Monkey Ball teammate F-Zero GX.
Yep. Like
What a
Sega-
partnership.
I mean, I would have assumed it would have gone to either Sony or Nintendo. I would like there's no chance it was going to Microsoft. Like I never thought that ever. But
Right.
I was surprised that they aired and deferred mostly to Nintendo.
Yeah.
Probably because despite them being rivals for so long, they probably had some kind of relationship with them.
And I think it's also kind of smart because I know your comment already. You're talking about Jet Set going to Xbox. I think that the way you look at the audiences, there was at that point definitely a distinct GameCube audience and a distinct Xbox audience. As much as we'd like to say there wasn't
right.
there. The GameCube was more kid friendly. Certainly.
There you go. That's what I was.
That's
trying
where
to,
you want Billy Hatcher to be.
I was trying to get to that without saying it. Thank you for doing that, Kyle. But that was a landmark moment, just having that come there. But Sega did throw its weight behind it. Other games, like there were some games that here's another one, like the cover we talked about, Soulcalibur. Soulcalibur 2 was multi-platform. It came out on every console, Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube. Each console version had a console exclusive character. I totally forget the other one. Was the Tekken guy, right? Heihachi.
And Spawn.
And Spawn. Thank
On
you. That's one I
Xbox.
could
No, it
on
wasn't
Xbox.
Spawn. It was Todd McFarlane. It was a new character he designed for the game.
But I think that character's in all three, and Spawn's the exclusive character.
I'm not sure, but I think the reason it's hard to remember is because everyone remembers Link.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Because I was like, oh, here's these cool characters. Oh, Link from The Legend of Zelda is going to be in the GameCube version. And you know what? That version went on to be the best-selling version of Soulcalibur 2.
He even had alternate swords and shields, right?
The quest stuff in there where you collect all the weapons and stuff.
It's super impressive.
And then the trailer for it with that cool version of the Legend of Zelda theme, like this was a good instance of, like I was saying, like Sonic coming to Nintendo, leveraging those IPs. Like Nintendo was lending Link to third parties. So like, hey, like we can't make all these games, so what if we let you use some of our IPs in your games?
That is pretty crazy when you think about it.
And
actually.
Star Fox Adventures, that was Rare, who was like still under their wing, but
that one's way opposite. That one's like you need to put.
They forced it, but like.
But the EA deal with NBA
Street
and what's the other one? SSX?
SSX.
Yeah.
There's one more and I'm forgetting. The point is, Nintendo opened up, I feel, this generation to. They probably got some feedback from third parties like, your IPs are worth so much. Can we just have some help? Can we like use a Mario character in one of our games and stuff? And I think it got really popular during this generation. And Soulcalibur 2 is like one of the pinnacle shining examples of that, of like, not only does it work, it sold so well, but got people hyped about it.
Flexing the IP.
Sorry, I'm trying to let's move along a little faster.
Sure.
One big one.
'Kay.
An exclusive for GameCube. Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. The alternate version of Metal Gear Solid for the original one for PlayStation, handled by Silicon Knights.
Yeah.
The director.
I enjoy playing that game, but it is not remembered well.
Yeah. It's very divisive.
I feel like its reputation just gets worse, like year after year. It's kind of funny.
I feel like people treated Metal Gear Solid 1 as still kind of rooted in some kind of realism. It was like more a little gritty. You look back on it, it's still comical now, but at the time, people took it more seriously. I feel like
Snake wasn't hopping on missiles.
Yeah, he wasn't jumping up like. I forget the guy's name. I even interviewed him. I apologize, but the director of the Versus movies in Japan, the Versus movie in Japan, who Kojima's like a huge fan of, handled the direction of those cutscenes,
and he went off the wall.
They're just insane. I mean, I like him now. I like laugh at them. Like that's hilarious.
No.
But the OG version's better. But as a game,
like even the one with Revolver Ocelot, it just turned into some
trailer.
silly.
I feel like besides the Metal Gear Solid 2 trailer, that Twin Snakes reveal trailers is like Kojima, another coming out party for Kojima with like his like memes, the words he kept doing NGC with different words or whatever.
Yeah,
I was like, oh come on. So a Metal Gear Solid game did come to GameCube, an original one, but this also harkens to the point of Nintendo also didn't get a lot of the biggest third-party games on its system. No brand new Metal Gear Solid game came out on GameCube. 2, Sons of Liberty and Snake Eater did not come out on GameCube. Another big series that did not touch GameCube, Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Exclusive to Sony. And then the other one, the bridge that was burnt the past generation, Square Enix. They did come back. They did come back this generation. We saw they brought back Crystal Chronicles for GameCube, and they started releasing enhanced ports of their older games like Final Fantasy IV Advance, 5 Advance, and 1 and 2 Dawn of Souls. Sorry, on Game Boy Advance later on. But they did not put 10. They did not put 12 on GameCube.
Half efforts.
The 11 obviously was like PC only, and PlayStation 2 and an Xbox 360. They did not throw their weight behind the GameCube with those titles.
I think that's the stuff, Damiani, that led people to think the GameCube was underpowered, less powerful than the PS2, and maybe the size of the discs, when in fact it was little beefcake. It was more powerful.
Yeah, there were all those. Like I feel like console wars during GameCube, PS2, Xbox era. I think, to me personally, that was the height of it. I know people remember more fondly the Sega Nintendo. That might have been more in like commercials, I feel like, but I don't remember there wasn't as much online arguing because online was very young and almost not there.
Yeah. It was the internet.
And
the internet did it,
man. PlayStation, it was like just kind of like Sony did win eventually, but like I didn't think there was that much rivalry initially because Sony was the new kid and they were still proving themselves, and then they blew them out.
I think it's all the message boards. The fight went from playgrounds to online anonymity.
Yeah. The internet, like online communities exploded in the early 2000s, and then the start of a new console generation with 3 major players who were ready to go. And I just remember like all out fanboy wars.
Yes,
like, I just cannot go a day without seeing something about like GameCube's you can't handle Grand Theft Auto. It's only for kids. That's why you don't get GTA on there. You can't handle that game, can you, Nintendo? And then like Xbox be like, well, we got a real shooter called Halo. What do you got? You got Grand Theft Auto? Like, you're not. Look at the shooting in that game. It's stupid. Like, play a real game.
You just remember how proud they were of Chinatown Wars?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember how proud they were about that? That's so funny now. That's so
like,
funny.
Reggie's like, we're bringing Chinatown.
Yeah.
I was like, no, Reggie, this is not a landmark moment.
Everything's
Nintendo.
all set. We fixed it. Chinatown Wars on the DS. Like,
Oh my god.
we skipped ahead. We skipped way far ahead in
So
time
many
for that. But
things.
yeah.
It's
I mean, oh man, was Animal Crossing? I think was
Yeah.
at E3 2002 as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, even though
Oh my
it was,
gosh.
as Kyle pointed out before we started, Animal Forest and N64, for rest of us in the world, Animal Crossing got its start on GameCube for us,
Yeah.
like and Pikmin. We kind of alluded to it, but
Oh,
like
Pikmin,
new
baby.
big Nintendo IPs, Animal Crossing and
Yeah.
Pikmin, starting in this generation that you continue to see to this day. So I just want to say, like, we didn't cover Blood's selection of games covered a lot here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any other first party things here that we talked about some.
Yeah,
Mario
we mentioned
Kart.
Eternal Darkness. I mean, there's
Darkness is crazy.
so many games that came out for
Oh, the
GameCube.
weird Donkey Kong games.
Donkey Konga?
Donkey
Jungle
Konga,
Beat?
and then Donkey Kong Jungle Beat with the
Yep.
bongos.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Jungle Beat's worth mentioning because that turned into the Galaxy team, I believe.
Yeah, that was their
So-
first game.
And Blood also mentioned you showed off Pac-Man Versus. We
Yeah.
didn't get into that E3 when they showed that off, and that was like their big announcement.
Their big gimmick. It was so dumb.
We have this out here. Well, I think this will be a good transition to Game Boy Advance while Blood's
Sure.
still going through this. Is that they spent an entire E3 focusing on how this device called the Game Boy Advance would connect to your GameCube so that you could play these games with this unique experience Nintendo had crafted. Honestly, a brilliant idea, but the practicality of it, having to hook up all these cables, having to buy all these moving
no,
parts.
I don't, Damiani,
to-
I don't think it was even a brilliant idea.
The concept of it,
Yeah.
because Wi-Fi wasn't like wasn't prevalent enough to do that. Like DS fully realized it because the technology was there.
Yeah.
DS did what this was trying to do,
Yeah.
and because the technology finally caught up and was cheap enough to do. This was the best. There was
The
this,
DS never really communicated with your Wii. It did for like Pokemon Battle Revolution.
It could,
But,
yeah, the idea of using it as a controller. I mean, it was definitely an interesting experiment.
I guess you could say this is why we have the Switch now. You could say that's the birth
Wii
of
U
it.
gamepad.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, you could say,
this.
but like even at that point, Damiani, this is like why this is unappealing to me. I don't want
Oh
to
no!
play.
Back
Pac-Man
then, I was
versus-
just like,
yeah,
I did not want this though.
yeah.
Why'd
you
because
end up
they
getting
didn't
it?
have any concepts that really drove home why I needed. They didn't have that experience that you could get on like I'm trying to think of the DS games to illustrate this point. I'm sorry, they're escaping me. None of like those games were ever attempted on this system. I feel like to capture that. What you got were Pac-Man Versus.
Yeah.
What you got were Four Swords Adventures, which that drove me insane that they decided to use that game, Zelda game, for this concept. The only
But the idea was with Crystal Chronicles and Four Swords
Crystal
Adventures
Chronicles.
was that the game could keep going without it stopping for you. Like if one person going into the menu and changes equipment, everyone else can keep playing the game. And was like Four Swords Adventures, it was kind of almost like this idea you didn't know what was happening. Like they went into a house, they could only see what's inside that house on their screen,
Yeah.
or a cave or something like that.
Which is a novelty. It's not like saying, "Hey, here's a great, sweet new game.
Yeah.
Here's Twilight
Right.
Princess, everybody." You know what I mean? Like it's not that level
We
of
did
announcement.
use it in Splinter Cell. I was like the spotter for well, she's my wife now. She wasn't at the time, but yeah. So she would be playing Splinter Cell, and I'd be like watching the radar and the map, and be like, okay,
On
there's
the
a guy
Game Boy
over there-
Advance?
On the Game Boy Advance, yeah.
Oh,
You can do that.
Blood. That's genuinely cool. That's
And stuff.
truly
I
interesting.
remember having to hook this up because I wanted 4 people to
Yeah.
play Four Swords Adventures. I was like, no, I'm doing this.
Did it ever
We're doing
happen?
it. Yeah, I had to invite friends over to do it. I got maybe 2 weekends. 2 weekends I remember where I had was able to do sleepovers where I got to do it, and that was it until I got older, and then I found with the Game Boy player it actually made some of it a little bit easier to do with less people, and especially trying to capturing the footage and stuff, which I got into later on. But it was just such a weird focus for Nintendo. They really doubled down on it, and it just, I mean, it's completely a Nintendo move, but
Yeah.
at the same time it was so, I don't want to say baffling, but so frustrating that this is what they were focusing on, because I feel like they might have been detecting that despite their best efforts, GameCube was kind of slipping a bit.
And the Game Boy Advance was doing so
And
well.
Game Boy was doing so well, and they're like, what do we do? We're equal power, if not more technically more powerful than like.
But it was
some
way
of our
before
competitors.
any of that because it was on the
Yeah.
boxes when they came out. They're like, you can
Oh.
use this as a controller on the GameCube when it comes out. Like they had a very early on a plan. They just didn't really know exactly what they want to do with it to like really have like that killer app.
Yeah, I think they just pulled the trigger out of desperation that like the 2 years in mark because they saw the sales were falling behind. Like, okay, we've been touting this. We need to put this out here because we've been saying we're gonna do this. We need something unique that sets us apart from Xbox and PlayStation 2 because we all look the same. It's up to our exclusives and our systems, and we're not winning that right now.
I want to say one really cool implementation of this. And I'm sorry, I know we're like way off track.
That's fine.
Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion. If you beat Metroid
right.
Prime, you pop over in
Fusion
Metroid
suit.
Fusion, you have Metroid, the original
Yeah.
NES game. And then, if you beat Metroid Fusion and you take that save into Metroid Prime, you get the sick Fusion suit in that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
That is really cool. I don't think they do a lot of stuff like that anymore. Like unlocking skins in HOTS, I guess, would be the equivalent
Right.
of that today. And I think that's really cool. Kind of basically free DLC for accomplishing something in another game is actually really cool to me.
Some other quick first-party ones we didn't mention.
Okay.
Somewhat
Yes.
rare. Paper Mario,
Mario,
Thousand Year
Thousand
Door.
Year
That's a top
Door.
tenner for me. Honestly, that's one of my top
That-
10
and
favorite
then
games.
Fire Emblem Path of Radiance,
Yep.
Also very rare, I
I have
feel
my
like.
big
system right
RPGs.
now.
Yeah.
as well as they have some good sports games. Mario
yeah.
Golf Toadstool Tour,
Mario
which
Golf.
I think is
It's
one
a
of the best.
really
And
good
Mario-
game.
oh,
And then
Strikers.
Super Mario Strikers,
Yes.
which I know a lot of people love. I wasn't as into, but
I think you could say Toadstool Tour is the best Mario Golf game.
Yeah.
You could get away with that.
Yeah.
well, the Game Boy Color one, that
It's
was
an
like
RPG.
The
Yeah, it's
Camelot
really fun.
one, yeah.
That also had some sort of, you could import your characters, but that's a Game Boy Color game. I wonder how that worked. That may have been for N64, was where you import your characters.
Oh right,
Uh,
yeah, the transfer pack,
Yeah.
which
So-
was basically that was kind of the beginning of that. Was transfer pack.
It's
So
why we have the Switch today. You know, I shouldn't be so negative about
Well,
it. It's
like,
honestly them planting the
I guess
seeds.
the point I want to make is with the GameCube before we move on real quick to Game Boy Advance is that this system, we did point out there were certain franchises that just absolutely did not appear on here. That definitely hurt the GameCube's chances. No GTA, no proper Final Fantasy, no new Metal Gears, some few other stuff. It was basically at parity performance-wise with its contemporaries.
Yes.
And it had a very solid lineup of third-party support and third-party exclusives.
Yeah.
Yet it couldn't beat out PlayStation 2. We can get into a lot of the reasons why. But despite those, I think Nintendo took away that sometimes even like the argument of Nintendo, like just get third-party support and you'd be fine. You like make the Switch just like an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4, but just use your exclusives and get those third-party games and you'll rock everybody. Like I think they remember the GameCube too fondly, or
That's
not
fair.
fondly. Like
That's fair.
they might have just lingering fears of like we tried that once.
They had Resident Evil 4.
We tried that
Yeah.
once, and while we had great games and great response to our games, it didn't live up to expectations possibly, and
Yeah.
it got blown out by PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're ever going to have that situation again. So that's why, and I know this failed, this gimmick here, this novelty, but I think they realized this was like not fully realized. And I'm sure when this was all going on, they were probably conceiving the DS and stuff. All right, what are we really gonna do that's gonna like knock the socks off our competition? And don't say beat them power wise because it doesn't work.
Blue
I
Ocean,
think
baby.
GameCube was the straw that broke the camel's back of
Yeah.
that. We can't compete power wise in hardware. We have to do something unique. And that's always been like my biggest takeaway from GameCube is that despite it being, I thought an amazing system, despite having amazing games.
It was actually profitable as well.
And
Don't
it was
forget
profitable.
that, yeah.
I think it ultimately sold worse than N64 in the end. It's like
Is that true?
I'm not sure. People keep
I know it was
trying to joke comparing it
around
to
20
GameCube.
million or so. Like I know, like basically it was like Xbox and GameCube were about the same.
Yeah,
And
but like
around
the
20.
regional split was like super
Oh, yeah.
weird because like
Oh, yeah.
GameCube I think was probably still less in Europe, but fairly even
in North
Japan
America.
and North America, whereas like Xbox is almost entirely North America.
Mm-hmm.
And then PlayStation 2 is just like 6 or
I
7
think
times more systems.
It's the initial bump.
Yeah, dude, it's
the
over. I
initial
think it's like
bump that
150.
N64 had, because N64 was coming off the Super Nintendo. I think it just had such a strong start sales wise. It had that huge bump that even though it started to decline, it already achieved such a high level, and it tapered off. Whereas GameCube was coming off. Oh man, N64 wasn't too hot in the end. Some people, the perception, it lost to PlayStation. So this PlayStation 2 thing comes out a year earlier, had the year advantage and stuff. Anyway,
Year advantage. It had the DVD, which was it was a huge deal at the time.
There's
DVD player was
It's not as
gigantic.
simple as I made it out, obviously, and I'd love to spend an episode getting into this, but Game Boy Advance, we'd only talked about kind of the gimmick behind it, but this was actually the system, the original system.
It was a real
there.
upgrade. That was the thing.
This
like
is
after,
the first Game Boy to actually have actually be a step up in power, not just adding color to the system like Game Boy Color. This was the
Game Boy Color's a step up in power. I want to hear it.
okay, it's a little bit of step up in power, but not like this. You could play games on Game Boy Advance that looked unlike anything you saw on
they
Game
looked like
Boy.
Super Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a portable Super Nintendo 2D PlayStation.
Yeah.
Like 2D games you saw on PlayStation or games you saw on Super Nintendo. That's what I felt like the quality of the games looked like on Game Boy Advance.
I'll give you that because it launched with the Castlevania.
The Castlevania games.
Sure, I'll give you that.
I mean, it's smaller screen and stuff.
That Tony
but
Hawk game with the actual 3D models and stuff, and
I
the way
played
they
it.
moved. Yeah.
I played that game. It's very
Pretty
fun.
crazy to see those 60 frames per second models.
Game Boy Advance. Just real quick, it launched in the U.S. In June
summer.
of 2001.
Yeah.
Came out a little bit earlier in Japan, but
Actually, that was the first thing I had imported. That's right. Because again,
Yeah.
it was region free.
it came before GameCube. Technically.
Once well, as soon as it was available in Japan, I got that launch lineup. I got mine was the white one. I got a
Nice.
little protective thing on it, but
Yeah,
that
Damiani,
definitely
why would
works.
you not? The white one was so cool, dude.
mine was the white one, and
Arctic
I had
White.
F-Zero. I
I have a
had
choice.
Kurin, and I forget what else, but and then like I said, I got the Oracle games for it right away.
Yep. And
Oh,
there
sure.
was that Oracle room I told you about that only opened if you're in the Game Boy Advance version or playing on a GBA. There's that room. There were real quick. So there were some good new IPs that came out on Game Boy Advance and some good series that saw it from Nintendo. Advance Wars.
Oh, sure.
That is
They got Nintendo so by surprise. They thought they were putting out this little niche game.
Yep.
And then it was
Oh,
sold
wow.
out for months.
People
Really?
still want
Nobody
more.
could get that game.
People still want a new one in that, and it's just I don't know, but it just came out of nowhere and was just huge
And that was
everywhere.
before Fire Emblem as well.
Yep.
So
I
there's
think
just
it
no
paved the way.
enthusiasm internally for the series, I guess.
I think they just didn't fully believe in it. I mean, they supported it, but I don't think they had any idea it was going to turn out to be the success that it became. Not as popular, not as successful. Golden Sun.
Yep.
Wow.
And
Yeah, I love
we had
Golden
someone
Sun.
who in the questions.
I don't
this
have
week-
love for Golden Sun, but I really wanted to because it just kind of, again, like you were saying, the PlayStation comparison, the way the sprites and stuff rotated, it made it look like a Final Fantasy VII style, combat.
Right, it would switch when you're on offense or defense. The camera would switch perspectives.
And you'd have these spells effects that would move across the screen and
And
everything.
the summons would level up.
Yeah.
That's the coolest
they
thing.
did. What else? We had Mario and Luigi. Saw it start on
Oh,
this.
yeah.
The Mario and Luigi series.
The mustard of your doom.
And WarioWare.
Yep.
Yeah.
One
GBA.
button micro games.
That's interesting. It is interesting to see where those. I feel like these are seeds. I really do. These
There
are
a lot of
interesting
seeds being
seeds.
sown in both these systems during
Yeah.
this time. Blood Mentioned Fire Emblem finally came out here in the West, GBA, and in GameCube also. So
I really dug
we had-
that. I
we
dug
had
it so
multiple Fire
much.
Emblem Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah.
We got a new Zelda game. We got Minish Cap, developed by Capcom flagship. The last one of those being handled by them. I mentioned earlier that Square Enix started re-releasing some of their older games with the Final Fantasy Advance series of games. We talked about the Castlevania 2D games, really good ones came out on GBA.
Yeah.
Whereas the 3D was still struggling at that point. You could argue where the N64
On
ones
PS2?
are good or PS2.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's like,
You don't have to argue. They struggled. They struggled.
They're,
Yeah.
they're not as good as these 2D ones, but
Yeah.
they continued on there. Metroid still found a life on Metroid
Yeah.
Zero Mission.
Fusion and Zero
And
Mission.
Fusion, yep. But I want to. I mean, Mega Man continued on Game Boy Advance. Like,
Oh, Mega Man
Battle Net-
thrived with the Battle
Mega Man
Network,
Zero, Battle
which
Network
I
series.
never could get into it, and it was just like
I got into
huge
Zero series,
number.
but Battle Network, I played one for a little bit. I was like, not for me, but I can see.
And
what
so
people
there's
love
like
it.
6 games in that series, right? And then the DS had its own version, and like it wasn't Battle Network, but it was another like
Yeah, I'm
RPG.
trying to forget.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, there was.
Maybe
It started a whole
time
thing.
when Mega Man was going strong, but I want to. Do you want to talk about Pokemon? Pokemon
Let's do it.
continued to explode
Yes.
during the Game Boy Advance.
Ruby Sapphire.
Ruby Sapphire, the remakes, Fire Red, Leaf Green, just it. I mean, yeah, it started its popularity on the original Game Boy, Game Boy Color, but GBA, like I
Well-
was like fully aware of Pokemon. Like you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Pokemon.
It's actually less popular in GBA.
So it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you're talking about sales, right?
Sales wise, yeah.
Okay, but I feel like the fandom was like out of control. Like it had like spiraled out of like it was just so big at that point.
Damiani, that's insane because
online,
it's not true.
Online. No, online. Like I was talking about like message boards.
Oh,
I was talking
okay.
about online.
I got you.
So
Sure.
like this is like kind of like the a place where it exploded in awareness because of the internet. Maybe not necessarily because of the games, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, what's crazy is, I mean, this version, the Game Boy Advance version, is when it became viable as a multiplayer game.
Okay.
Because this is when they add special attack and attack, and the reason why it can be played basically as an esport today is what they added in the Game Boy Advance games.
Okay. Okay.
But
I
I
have trust
really
in
don't
you.
like. I don't like the Game Boy
Okay,
Advance
so you don't
games.
like them.
Huh.
I think it's bad art. Like the overworld
Bad
map.
sprites?
Bad sprites. I think your character looks
The one thing
stupid
that
in those
killed me
games.
was like a lot of the real time stuff with like the. I think they had it in Silver too, but like the berries and everything.
The bug contest.
Oh yeah.
It's like every Thursday is a bug contest. I love that, blood.
But I
But
just
you're right,
felt like
berries. You're right.
berries, but they would like die out if you didn't take care of them enough. And
It's
that
when
kind of thing.
things started getting out of control for sure. That's when they have like beauty contests as the Game Boy Advance games. It started going a little nuts. You're right, because you had the Pokepuffs. You got to feed them to make them cool.
Oh God. Pokemon.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Damiani.
No, I wanted you to talk about it because you know it best. Because I didn't get into Pokemon yet.
A lot of people adore Ruby and
I didn't
Sapphire.
jump
Say it's
until
the
DS.
best music.
So
but yeah.
DS is when I got into Pokemon. So I was like, can defer to Kyle Bosman here, but
Sure.
still going strong.
Yeah.
Even if Kyle felt it like kind of had a drop off there.
It's like leveling off there. It's weird. You know, we talked about Zelda becoming a formula at a certain point. Obviously, on your third game, that's when you become a formula. That's when Pokemon became a formula is
Okay.
in Ruby and Sapphire.
Okay.
When you can start to expect things that are happening and you're going through motions at a certain point.
All right. Well, I feel like there were a lot of games on Game Boy Advance. Period.
Oh, yeah.
But it
yeah.
didn't have. I want to wrap up saying like it didn't have that long though, because it came out. We said it came out in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
By 2004, November 2004, DS would come out, and
Yeah, it's nuts.
had the backwards compatibility with it. So
And in between, we had this beauty.
oh yeah, there were some
Game Boy
revisions.
Advance SP.
And then there's
Nice
also
little clamshell.
I have one
Fits
of those.
right in your pocket.
It lights up.
And then there was
And
the
it
mic-
back-
A
it
real
lights
light.
up.
It's
Yeah.
a real light for
Oh, yes.
first time in America. Oh my gosh.
and there was a micro version that came out after that.
Yeah, micro was crazy, but yeah, that was after DS even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That when Reggie pulled that out. But apologies for not getting too in depth with the Game Boy Advance. But it's one. If you take away anything from it, it had a lot of synergy with the GameCube, and I just remember having a lot of memories of playing.
The e-reader.
Trying
Oh,
to
that was
play
another
Four
thing that was the
Swords.
connection.
Oh god,
the e-reader connection with Animal Crossing.
I
I
had to do that
I've
in
got
Pop
them in my
Fiction.
bag. I forgot to pull
I had to
them
do
out.
that in
But I
Pop
had the
Fiction.
cards. So like you'd swipe a card, like
NES
the
games.
information on the barcode was the entire game for some of these NES games.
Good stuff. Moving on. Our next section. Sorry to like cut it short. We're
Yeah.
running out of time. That's why we're rushing
way
so
out of
long.
time
We're
right
sorry.
now.
Real quick.
Oh boy.
We're
Okay.
just gonna pick one here. So
Okay.
it's this section called Last Call
With
It's
Carson
where,
Daly.
Anyone who is not Carson Daly, and is a $5 above patron can submit a question to us in advance
like to get
for
one
the
from
next
Carson
week's
Daly.
topic. And this week's topic was the GameCube, and Game Boy Advance.
Mm-hmm.
And the question this week comes from Nicholas Pettit, and it's what's the best GameCube game that hasn't been re-released in some form? Thanks for the very entertaining podcast. Love and respect. So any one of those games that has not been re-released since, remade or anything like that.
I have some questions for Bloodworth. So Rogue Leader, did that Wii re-release ever happen? I think no, right?
No, that was just leaked
Okay.
stuff about it, but it never
All right.
happened.
I mean, in a weird way, it was re-released in the third game
And I
as
love.
a multiplayer.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I love Sunshine, but my answer is Thousand Year Door. Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door.
Okay,
Sure.
Never ever seen again after the GameCube.
gotcha.
It's a crime.
I mean, I'll probably end up looking through all these and haven't changed my answer, but like Beautiful Joe's on top here. But that was
On PS2?
released on PS2, yeah. Wow. Man, there's so many games, but it's hard to like figure out the
F-Zero?
categories. GX, yeah.
Never seen
Let's go
again.
with GX.
Yeah.
That would be great. Well, I mean, they've even done it in, like, Dolphin and stuff, right? Like, shown that, like, it's really easy to upscale the HD and just how good it looks.
Come on, Switch.
Switch Virtual Console, baby.
Come on, Switch.
Yep. We'll go with and Eternal Darkness is sitting right in front of me,
There you
too.
go.
Yep.
What have you got, Damiani?
Might say what is said, Skies of Arcadia. But I would honestly rather see Super Mario Sunshine HD.
Sure.
I hope that comes to Switch. Needs to be on Switch. Make it happen, Nintendo. Super Mario Sunshine, vastly underrated. I was very guilty of that. I bashed that game a lot unfairly, but
For what it wasn't.
go replay it. Tell me it's bad now. Anyway, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Friend Code. Again, you can catch these episodes early if you're a $1 or higher patron on Sunday at 5 p.m. on the weeks that are opposite of Frame Trap. For everyone else, you get them around Tuesday at noon. And that's how this show and our other shows at Easy Allies are basically created, is through support of people like you on our Patreon page, which you can find at patreon.com/easyallies. Anything else I forget, Kyle? I'm trying to get better at this.
GameCube's good. GameCube's good.
GameCube's good. We'll wrap up with that. So, till next time, see ya.